Hi everyone, it's Michaela. So for today's session you are looking at Unit 1, which is understanding the range of service provision and roles within your health and social care, which includes adults, children's, young people's care, early years and childcare. And this unit comes from your Level 1 certificate, which is the introduction to health and social care in adult children and young people's settings. Okay.
Michaela will be talking you through this session today, and I'm just going to talk you through the aims and objectives of the session. So today's session will give you an overview of the service provision available to all age groups in health and social care and childcare.
So you'll see this slide coming up more or less every day. It's just a bit of a reminder really. So look out for the green box. Some of them are white boxes, some are green boxes. I think it's green on this one. On the right hand side, which is going to show you which question in your workbook that the slide relates to. You're then going to see the question on the page, which is going to tell you when you need to start writing. Okay. Hopefully that will make it more bite-sized for you and you'll be able to work through that quite well. But obviously we're here to help you, so please contact us, contact your tutor should you need any help and support. Of course, we'll be asking you questions throughout the day ourselves. So we talked about the word service provision when I read the title of the PowerPoint out to you there. So service provision, what does that term mean? Okay, now when we ask this in a classroom setting, people say, I have no idea. You do know what it means, you just don't know it probably as the term service provision. Okay, so I'll go through that with you now. So service provision literally means the services that are being provided. So within a health and social care or in children's care, service provisions are the type of care that people are receiving. So at this moment, we're not looking at the job roles, we are looking at the types of care that people or children can receive. So I've got an example here for you. So home care. So in elderly care, this means having needs met by a carer who visits the house. Whereas in children's care, it could be a nanny or an au pair, where they're going to be in that child's home to help out with the child's needs. So home care is sort of, it's two ways of looking at it there. But it's the service that's being provided that you're looking at, not the job title. Okay. So we're still relating to question 1 here. So part of your criteria is to look at your service provision in your local area. So we focused it on Manchester because you're all from Greater Manchester. So what other types of service provision can you think of? So remember my example was home care, so having your care needs met in your home, like washing and dressing. And remember that service provision means the services that are provided or the type of care that people receive. So what other types of service provision are there around Greater Manchester? So just have a think about that for a moment there before you move on. So service provision in Greater Manchester and across the rest of the country, of course. We've got home care, like I started with. There's then preschools, there's pharmacies, residential care settings, which could be for older adults, could be for people with dementia, could be for people living in like an assisted living sort of space if they've got like a learning disability or a physical disability where they're not able to get a place of their own. It could also be residential care for children that have been in failed foster placements as well. Community hospitals, rehabilitation sites such as substance misuse places. Not only substance misuse, it could be rehabilitation for people who have perhaps had a knee operation and they've gone to some sort of care provision where there's a lot of physiotherapy, doctor's surgeries, of course, and daycare centres. So what we're looking at here are the different service provisions that are available in our local area, but what we need to think about next is how these service provisions offer care. So what is the purpose of each of these places? So I've cut this across a couple of slides really. So home care, so we talked about this one already. Having your care needs met in your own home, like washing and dressing. And what I want you to do to expand that, to show that you are doing this in your local area, is I want you to find a company in your local area that provides this. So if you live in Bury, you could type Home Care Bury in on your search engine and you'll be able to find that there. A preschool, so preschools are there to teach children, but they're also there to support them socially, emotionally and physically. I'd like you to be able to name one of those in your local area as well if you choose that one. Pharmacies, so pharmacies give people health advice. They recommend medicines for things like colds. Again, I want you to be able to find one in your local area. Residential care, so care homes support people's physical, social and emotional needs. Again, you're going to research one in your own area. Some more here for you, so community hospitals. Now Withington Hospital provides services in antenatal care, radiology, orthopaedics and general surgery. So it's not got an A&E department or an urgent care centre, it is just a hospital where people have pre-booked appointments. Okay, that's the difference between a community hospital and sort of a hospital such as the Manchester Royal. Okay, so I'd like you to try and find one of those in your local area. That might be a little bit trickier, so I've given you an example there if you're really struggling. Rehabilitation, substance misuse. So there is a company called CGL, which stands for Change Grow Live, and they support adults and young people to come away from drugs and alcohol addictions and misuse of those products as well. You may be able to find another one in your local area. Doctor's surgeries, so the service they're providing is ordering routine blood tests, smoking advice, medication, help with minor injuries. They can give vaccination, they can give you health advice such as for your diet. I'd like you to name your local doctor's surgery. And daycare, so they offer care when parents or carers are unavailable to help them to develop emotionally, physically and socially. So daycare might be a little bit tricky to find one, but I'm going to give you that task there now. Okay, so you can pause this video while you look for some of those in your local areas. Service provision for adults. So we're going back to relating to question 1 here. So which of these relates to adults and why might adults access them? So we've got home care, preschools, pharmacies, residential care, community hospitals, rehabilitation such as substance misuse, doctor's surgeries and daycare. So which of these relate to adults and why might adults access them? So we've looked previously at some of the reasons why they might access them. So the reason why I'm saying who are they for, okay, is so that you are not overlapping. Because you've got 2 sets of questions on this. You've got questions 1 and 2 which relate to adults, and you've got questions 3 and 4 which relate to children. What I don't want you to do is to use the same 2 examples and say, well, adults can go to the GP and children can go to their GP. I know they can, but your criteria asks for 4 different examples, okay? So to be able to pass your course, please make sure you do 4 different examples on these questions. So question 1 and 2, you'll have 2 examples there. Question 3 and 4, you'll have 2 examples there. Okay. So you've just got to kind of think about it logically. We've got preschool on there. Are adults going to go to preschool? No. Okay, so you're now on to your first question. So question 1, identify 2 service provisions within the health and social care in your local area for adults. Please ensure that you use a supporting sentence within your answer. Ask your tutor if you're unsure what this means. Okay, so when you are identifying, you must always give a supporting sentence. If you just put, say, dog and cat, I was trying not to give away the answers there. If you just put dog and cat, that's just a list of pets. It doesn't tell me anything about them. Okay, so what I would like you to do instead is write a supporting sentence such as using your question to create your answer. So you could start with the number 2. So 2 service provisions within health and social care in my local area for adults are, and then write which ones they are. That way, if I was to hide the question, your answer still makes sense. Ask your tutor if you're unsure at this time. Pause this video now to answer that question in your booklet. So please make sure that you've already answered question 1, because you cannot work on question 2 without your answers in question 1. So those 2 service provisions that you identified for adults in question 1, what you are now going to do is use those for this question. So using sentences to develop a paragraph, outline what service they provide and who will access the services stated. So if you wrote about a GP on question 1, then you need to write about a GP on question 2. Okay, so you should have 2 examples from question 1 that you'll now give me more information on those two examples in question 2. Please pause this video here so that you can complete that question. Now here I've just done a recap of the service provision for your next couple of questions, just so you don't have to keep rewinding back too far. So I'll just leave these on the screen for a moment for you to have a read through, just to remind yourself if you need it. So this time we're going to look at service provision for children. I've put the list of 8 services back up there. You should have already used 2 of these, so please don't think about those 2 anymore, because you now can't use them for children because you've already used them for adults. Okay? So this time think about which of these relate to children and why might children access them. Remember, you cannot use the same 2 examples as you used before, even if you change it to children. We need 4 examples, okay? So 2 for adults, 2 for children. Okay, so you're on to question 3 now. So identify 2 service provisions within health and social care in your local area for children. These should be different to your answers for question 1. Please make sure you use a supporting sentence in your answer. Ask your tutor if you're not sure what this means. So this time, instead of using the word adults, you're going to use the word children. So if you cover up the word identify and start from the number 2, 2 service provisions within health and social care in your local area for children are, and then you can tell me which ones you have chosen. Pause this video here whilst you write that question. Then on to question 4, you need to look at the 2 children's service provision that you identified in question 3. So if you've not finished question 3, please go back to that first. Then using sentences to develop a paragraph, outline what service they provide and who will access the services stated. Okay, so you're going to tell me, let's just say if you chose a preschool, you could say about what service that preschool provides and who will access that service. So how old are the children that go there and what are they called in your local area? Okay, pause this video here whilst you complete that question. Okay, so we're now moving on to the work that's based for question 5, okay? So statutory provision versus independent provision. So if you have any idea what these 2 terms mean, then that's great, but we're just going to have a look at what they mean on the next couple of slides. So statutory service provision, it sounds like it's going to be really complicated, but actually it means it's just provided by the government. Okay, so the government provide this type of care. But what's that called? What is government provided care called in the UK? We've then got independent service provision. Now this is anything outside of the government provided care. So can you think of any care that's not provided by the government? There are some. Just have a think about those for a moment there. Okay, so you may or may not have got that. So we're thinking about the NHS. That is the government provided care, the National Health Service, and we are very, very lucky to have that in the UK, aren't we? Whereas independent service provision, this is anything that's outside of the NHS, so it could be private healthcare, so people getting cosmetic surgery, things like that. People also choose to pay for some procedures so that they can sort of skip through the waiting process of the NHS waiting times and things. Charity support as well, that's independent, so if you were to seek help from a charity such as Aspire Spinal Cord Charity, they are there as a charity support. They're not funded by the NHS, and any other sorts of voluntary care as well. So if you had say a voluntary befriender, someone who goes in to speak to people that live on their own, sort of the elderly and people like that, then that is independent as well. So there's some other differences as well. So we've looked at the NHS as statutory service provision. Now the NHS is absolutely huge. It is way, way bigger than any of the other healthcare providers in the UK, way bigger than any private organisations, bigger than charities and bigger than voluntary organisations as well. The statutory service is funded by the government. That's the biggest difference really. Whereas private healthcare is paid for by the individual, or some people have insurance that comes as like a perk through their work and things like that. Okay, so that slide there gives you lots of detail there about the differences between what statutory service provision is and what independent service provision is. Okay. So that leads you on to question 5 there. So I'd like you to outline the difference between statutory and independent service provision. You need to use the PowerPoint and this video here to help you with your answer. Remember that you've got to use sentences when you're outlining, so we're looking for a paragraph, probably around sort of 3 to 4 sentences there. Okay, so pause this video here whilst you complete that question. The next part we're looking at is informal care. So informal care, who might an informal carer be? Have a think about that there for a moment. So an informal carer, there are lots of different people who can be informal carers. So it could be the person's family, their husband, their wife, their partner, their son, their daughter, who, you know, maybe they just help with the shopping. They may be more hands-on with their care, and they may do sort of, you know, helping them to the toilet and things like that. Informal care can come from friends as well, come from neighbours, community groups. You do need to include who an informal care could be in your answer, so make sure you take notes of that there. When I say neighbours, I'm going to give you an example here. So my partner's parents live next door to a lady who has dementia, and she pops out multiple times a day asking them for the time. They have no issue, you know, telling her what time and day, what day it is, what time it is, etc. But then, you know, if she's walking down the street with her slippers on rather than her shoes, they're quite inclined to tell her, you know, you need to go home now and get your shoes on. Yeah, she's still very, very independent, sort of early-ish stages of dementia there. But it's not a role that they are sort of formally in. They've just adopted that role as a bit of an informal carer as the neighbour. So thinking about those different people who can be informal carers, how does informal care contribute to service provision? So how does it help with service provision? What kind of tasks might informal carers do or undertake? I want you to think about adults, children and young people here. So how do those informal carers provide care, really, is the question. So with adults, it could be things like personal care, like washing and dressing. It could be physical support. They could go round and clean once a week, twice a week for them. They may just bring their shopping or order their shopping from the internet or something. But that is still care being provided by somebody informally if they're not being paid for it. With children, informal care could be reading and helping them to learn through things like toys and books. So if you're maybe sort of, I don't know, babysitting your niece or your nephew, you're an informal carer because you're a family member providing that care, but you're still going to be adding to their learning journey in some sort of way if you're playing with them. With young people, so sort of teenagers, you're supporting them emotionally to manage their behaviour and trying to build up their self-esteem. So it might be that you've got, say, a younger cousin that you maybe go to, I don't know, a theme park or something with, and it's just about making sure that you're there for them emotionally. And with any of the above, you could be supporting with holidays, with events, just any way to help people to socialise. So what I would like you to do for question 6 is to outline how informal care contributes to service provision. So just remember what that means. So how does informal care in its own way provide service provision? What services are those people providing? So remember to tell me who the informal carers might be, and remember to include in your answer some examples of the tasks that they might be doing as well. Not only for adults, but for children and young people as well. If you can bring some of those in, try and use some of your own examples. Don't just copy directly from our examples by any means. Do some of your own research here. And as always, remember to use sentences in your answer because you need to develop a paragraph. So we're looking for sort of 3 to 4 sentences here. So please pause this video here whilst you are writing your answer for question 6.
And now you have completed the session, you will have an overview of the service provision available to all age groups in health and social care and childcare.